Welcome to the US Kiss Vinyl Reference YouTube channel. Please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Alright, folks, welcome to another episode of the US Kiss Vinyl Reference. I am your host, Mike Stone. And today we're going to break off and go on a little side road again. Not quite ready to move forward with the catalog yet, but I feel that there is there's a couple of 45s that I have that didn't really fit in with a particular album, but they may be appropriate for a certain series of albums, I should say. So instead of, like, the last episode was Creatures of the Night, you was probably expecting an episode on Lick It Up today. Well, I'm not doing Lick It Up yet. So I'm going to do it on a certain series of albums that I have talked about in all of the previous episodes. And by doing that, I feel that might be a good bookend for that era of albums, so to speak. So the series I'm going to talk about, if you've been looking around on the screen for a little Easter egg this whole time instead of looking straight at my ugly mug, so you might have noticed I've had a little clue this whole time in the corner of the screen. So we're going to be talking about the filmworks 2 series today. So it's one that I've hit on in every episode this far. So from the debut to Creatures, it wasn't in the originals and it wasn't in the Elder. So because the originals and the Elder don't exist in the filmworks 2 series. But yeah, that's I feel doing one on that series, getting it done and all at once, that might further some folks' understanding of the filmworks 2 series. And who knows, I might do a quick one on the filmworks 3 too, but I don't think I can get it all together in one episode, because it's still a pretty good chunk of records to talk about. So yeah, I've got a little stack of 45s here that don't really fit in anywhere with one particular album. So I believe that we'll do the filmworks 2, get these 45s out of the way. So I've touched on them at some point because I wasn't sure quite where I was going to put them in at. So anyway, go ahead and get yourself TV watching friendly, and I'll see you in a minute. Alright, welcome back. So as I stated before, we're not doing a title today, we're doing a series of titles, the filmworks 2 series to be exact. And what that is it is a series of reissues of the back catalog, from the debut to Creatures of the Night, minus the Elder and the originals. And it was released between 1983 and 1984. It was right before they rolled out the set of reissues with the printed barcodes on the jackets. And this was just basically a way to recoup Polygram's investment from buying out Casablanca. And so let's go over some of the hallmarks that we need for it to be a filmworks 2. So the first hallmark that you need will be on the jacket. On the back of the jacket, on most of them, there will be a number somewhere, be it a 501, 0501, 206, 0704, something along those lines. It'll be one of the corners of the jackets, all except for double platinum, which we'll touch on that. Another hallmark is it's going to be a dead cheap reissue. So for the most part, your custom inner sleeves are gone, minus I think Rock and Roll Over. Yeah, Rock and Roll Over still has a custom inner sleeve. Inserts, they're gone. The label of the record. So up to this point, most of them have had a Sunset Boulevard address at the bottom for Casablanca. Now we have a polygram address at the bottom of the label. And most of the labels will have a pressing plant number. It's usually a 2-digit number somewhere on the label. So those in a nutshell are kind of like the 3 basic ingredients that you need. But before we get too far into this, I want to throw something out there that kind of made me feel all fuzzy inside a little bit. So I usually I release episodes early Saturday mornings. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning where I'm at, and usually I'll have one uploaded to YouTube already, and it automatically releases it at a time that I schedule. So usually, like, at the time I'm filming this is the same day that my episode for Music from the Elder was released. So Music from the Elder was released today. I have Creatures filmed already, and it's uploaded to YouTube, kind of in the green room, as they say, and I have it scheduled for next Saturday. So right now, as of this filming, Music from the Elder is the current episode, and I get comments and stuff on my episodes, and I try to answer most, if not all of them, or react to them. Do something to at least acknowledge that I've read the comments. And some of these are from people I know and have known for years, and some of them are from people that I don't know. So I also have a Facebook page for the U.S. Kiss Vinyl Reference, and I have an Instagram page as well. So I got a comment on my Facebook page for the U.S. Kiss Vinyl Reference, and it kind of made me feel good a little bit. And I'll switch my camera over here so you can see the comment. It says, "Great episode, Mike. Thanks for these. I have been passing up a nice copy of The Elder for a few weeks now at my local shop. Watched this morning, and by noon I had my 5th copy of The Elder in my collection. Of course, after I saw that little CRC at the bottom right and the different track listing on the back. Good stuff." So I blurred the guy's name out because I don't just throw people's names out over the internet. So it's kind of a privacy thing, I guess. But I mean, it wouldn't be nothing to go find it. But anyway, so I mean, it makes me feel good that this guy had seen this copy, and he's just like, and then after he watched one of my episodes, he went back and looked at it, and he was like, "Whoa, hey, you know, this is something to pick up, you know. And you know, he's obviously happy that he picked it up, and I'm happy for him for picking it up. So that kind of makes me feel good, you know, seeing that, you know, all this time I'm spending talking into this little robotic eye right here, you know, it is accomplishing something, you know. So, you know, it's not so glamorous from this side of the camera. Yeah, I'm staring at a camera and a reflection of me, so, you know, from my computer screen. So, yeah. But so, you know, stuff like that, that's what I would call a payoff, and it feels good. So, all right, all the warm and fuzzies aside now. Let's see, I went over what all we need for a filmworks 2. Okay, I did mention the plant numbers earlier. I did not mention that it could or could not have a UPC sticker on the jacket. So far, I have seen every title in this series except for Ace, Peter, and Paul's solo album. I've seen Gene's with a UPC sticker. So, without further ado, I guess. So I've got them organized here by chronological order of their original release. The catalog numbers kind of jump around a little bit on the UPCs, but most of mine don't have UPC stickers, so I don't know any better anyway. So we'll start off with the debut. And now I'm going to touch, so I mentioned the plant number, the printing plant number. And I'll hold that up there and bury my face in behind it, and maybe. Anyway, I'll have to drop an image in. So that was the 501 printing plant number on the back of the jacket. It's up here in the upper right hand corner, I'm sorry. And then for inner sleeves, all of mine have a plain Filmworks inner sleeve, all of my Filmworks 2 series. Now I am going to show another little feature that was kind of touched on recently, but I've known about it for a couple of years. So you can see right there, yeah, it's probably not going to lock in on it, but I'll throw in an image. There is a small 0701 down by the text on the bottom. And these Filmworks inner sleeves may or may not have that text. I've got a little assortment of both in my Filmworks 2 series. So, yeah, every title that I have has this Filmworks inner sleeve with or without that 0701. All right, and now the labels. So, on the debut, if you look at the text on the bottom, it says manufactured and marketed by Polygram Records Incorporated, 810 7th Avenue, New York, New York, 10019. And right before the word manufactured, you'll see a number 53. So there's a pressing plant number. So you have a polygram address, a pressing plant number, which not all titles will have that pressing plant number on the label, but they all have that polygram address. And then they all have a printing plant number and or a UPC sticker. So double platinum won't have a printing plant number on the jacket, which I'll show here in a little bit. So in a nutshell, that is the filmworks 2 criteria. And I mentioned that the originals and the Elder were not part of this series. The originals obviously wasn't, but some of you may be looking at your copies of the Elder and saying, well, hey, my Elder has a 501 or it has an 0704. But no U.S. copy of the Elder has ever been shown with a filmworks label. So that's what kicks it out of the filmworks 2 series. Though there are some copies of the Elder that have been seen with a UPC sticker. But they've all, the ones that got opened, they've all had that custom Elder label on them so far. So that kicks them out of the series. All right, next up is Hotter Than Hell. And the 501 will be in your upper right corner again. It's a white 501, and it's really hard to see in like auction pictures and stuff. So I had to fly in an image because my camera is really starting to be a little bitch. So, but yeah, it's in that upper right hand corner again. About where that first wrinkle is on the finger and into the second wrinkle. So that's kind of something to look for. It was, I forgot what I was fixing to say, but yeah. Also has that same filmworks inner sleeve. And the vinyl. So again, it's got that same polygram address at the bottom. And then also there on the left, before manufactured, it's got a 53 on it again. So this one also has the same pressing plant. Which this pressing plant was up in Hoppage, New York. I hope I said that right for those of you who live in or near. If I pronounced it wrong, I apologize. But the name of the facility that has that puts that 53 on the label was, it used to be Kiel back in the 70s, and then around 1980 or so it changed to Hoppage Record Manufacturing. So on a lot of these filmworks reissues in the runouts, you'll see a number and then HRM, which that's Hoppage Record Manufacturing. So I do not believe it still exists today. I could be wrong, but I don't think it does. All right. Our next one is Dress to Kill. And the first notable thing about this is the jacket is not embossed. So it's completely flat, whereas the logos are usually raised up around the picture. This is all completely flat on both sides. Dress to Kill has a 501 right there in the upper right corner, and hey, my camera grabbed that one. Same filmworks inner sleeve. And the label has that polygram address at the bottom, And then right before the word manufacturing, there's a 53 there again. So there's your pressing plant number. And not every title in this series has a 53 on it. You know, a couple of them have other pressing plant numbers, and there's a couple of them in here that don't have a pressing plant number at all. But the real important part is the polygram address. So, you know, if it has like a Casablanca address, the Sunset Boulevard address, I would consider that a Frankenstein of sorts. Whether somebody put it together intentionally or unintentionally, you know, someone may have bought a record back in '76 or whatever and played the absolute hell out of it and wore it out. And then, you know, late '83, early '84, they decided to replace that copy. And, you know, maybe one of the jackets was better than the other, or vice versa, and swap the record and the jacket. You know, that could happen, but, you know, for the sake of this series, you know, we're going to go ahead and keep all the criteria that I laid out in order to be considered actually part of that series. So, all right. Next one up is Alive. And if you remember back to the Alive episode in '77, the Alive jacket got a little bit of a makeover. So like down here, it had the Casablanca Record and Filmworks logo. And then up here, it said 2 record set under Alive. Well, for this '83-'84 reissue, they dropped the 2 record set, and then it's got the old original Casablanca logo at the bottom. This jacket does not have a 501 on the jacket, and you know, when this series was first kind of being discovered, a lot of people called them 501s. And you know, this one right here, and then 1 or 2 others having a different printing plant number on the jacket, kind of put the kibosh on that name a little bit. So the printing plant number that Alive does have for this series is, you can't see it on my camera, unfortunately, but I'll drop an image in. There's a red 0704 in that lower right corner right there, and it's going that way instead of side to side. So if you actually wanted to read it, you'd have to hold it up like this. Still a gatefold. The gatefold hasn't changed yet. We still have those Filmworks inner sleeves. No inserts, so the booklet would not have been included with this reissue, and these were done on the cheap, and they wouldn't have put in that extra expense to print up a booklet to put in there. So, all right, and then on the vinyl, it also has that polygram address at the bottom, and then on the left hand side before the word manufactured, there's a number 53. So there's your pressing plant number again. And something notable to talk about on Alive here. the original issues from the 70s, you could find with either the gatefold being a separate panel that was pasted in at the top or the bottom, or it could be folded over. You know, the whole jacket was printed at one piece, it folded over from the top and was just pasted at the bottom. Every Filmworks 2 that I've seen, the jacket is printed all at once, and then it's folded and glued at the bottom. So that's just a neat little feature about Alive for this series here. And Alive to me seems like one of the most common ones from this series, and I've had quite a few copies of it over the years, upgrading this part or that part, and every jacket I've had so far has been like that. So alright, next up is Destroyer. And for Destroyer, we have a slightly different printing plant number. So down here in this lower right corner, you can see it has a 0501 underneath the Casablanca logo. So down there in that lower left or lower right corner. Filmworks inner sleeve. And the label. So it's got that same polygram address at the bottom, and off to the left before the word manufactured you see a number 53, so there's your pressing plant number. And then I have seen and heard about copies of this coming with that outro after Do You Love Me pressed into it and without. Mine happens to have it. I know I have two different Filmworks 3 reissues that have the barcode printed on the back of the jacket. I know one of them has it and the other one doesn't, so well, that's a little tidbit about Destroyer. But I have two Filmworks 3s because of a different variation, which we may talk about on that episode. So, but it just happened to have one of each, so that wasn't a selling point for me. Alright, and then Rock and Roll Over is next. And for Rock and Roll Over, it's in the upper right corner. There's a black 501. And then Rock and Roll Over has a custom inner sleeve, but it's not paper. It's a little bit thinner than the jacket. And on one side of this inner sleeve, there is a white 0501 printed on the jacket. So this is a cardstock. It's kind of like the Destroyer inner sleeve a little bit. But I've seen them come with this, and I've also seen them come with with just a regular Filmworks inner sleeve. I believe it could be, correct either way. Alright, and then the label. So we have that same polygram address at the bottom, and then off to the left, right before the word manufactured, you see the number 53. So there's your pressing plant number. I promise there are other pressing plant numbers eventually, but it seems like like everything up to double platinum, I think, has the same pressing plant. And you could probably guess that Love Gun is next. So Love Gun has a little oddity about it. So on the back of the jacket, we have that white 501 in the upper right corner. And then in the lower left corner, we have a black 501. Why there's two, I don't know, but that's just a little oddity there. Filmworks inner sleeve. Alright. Then your label. It's got that polygram address at the bottom. Then off to the left, it's got a number 53 printed on the label. So there's your pressing plant number. Okay. Next up is Alive 2. So again, no inserts on any of these. There's a 501 in the upper right corner of Alive 2. Still got the same gatefold we always had. As far as vintage copies go, I think this is my best looking gatefold for Alive 2. No custom inner sleeve, just Filmworks. Alright. Then for the label, it's got that same polygram address at the bottom, and off to the left you see a number 53 printed on the label. So there's your printing plant number. Alright, now we get to double platinum, and for the first time in this series we've got variations. So I've had several copies of double platinum over the years. They've all had this shiny jacket. None of them have had a printing plant number printed on the jacket anywhere. Not on the back, not on the inside. Honestly, I think these were leftovers from the original run. I mean, it's really not that far. I mean, the original run was in '78. this series started around 1983. That's only 5 years. They could have had some left over. Some copies, the more desirable copies, have a UPC sticker on the jacket. So there's you a little look at that sticker, and it has the new polygram number on it and then the old Casablanca number under it. With double platinum, the variation, you won't be able to see it on the camera. I'll have to fly it in. So this one here has a UPC sticker on the back, and it does not have a price code on the spine. So it just says NBLP 7100-2, and that's it. So that's the variation here. Filmworks inner sleeve. And the vinyl is well, I mean, the biggest tip off is the fact that it's a Filmworks label with no silver on it, but it also has that same polygram address at the bottom, and then off to the left hand side you see a number 53 printed. And you might notice, like those of you that have some of both series, the Filmworks 2 with the plant numbers and or the UPC sticker, and then the Filmworks 3 with the printed UPC, you might notice that some of these labels are the same for both. I mean, yeah, some titles have different labels for both series. Some of them just kind of reuse the same labels. And then we have another copy of Double Platinum. It's also in a shiny jacket. It's got the same Filmworks inner sleeve. And then it's got that same Filmworks label. Everything is the same about this, except for, you know, you can see the UPC sticker, and now it says NBLP 7100-2, and then $12.98 for a price code. So you can find these with and without the price code. And I was fortunate enough to find both of these with a UPC sticker on the jacket. I have never seen nor heard of any coming with the big track list sticker from this series. I'm not really convinced that it would have been made for this series. Alright. Now we're getting into the solos, and the solos to me, pardon me, the solos to me seem to be the toughest part of the series to complete. My last title for this series was Ace's solo album, and it took me forever to find it, so I traded with a friend up in Canada to get it. So we'll start off with Gene's solo album. And in that upper right corner on the back, you'll see a white/pink 501. And then it's got a Filmworks inner sleeve in it. And the vinyl. So it's got the polygram address down at the bottom. This time we don't have a printing plant to be found anywhere on the label. So the important part is that polygram address. And I was talking about UPCs. I have seen a copy of Gene's solo album. I think I've seen 2 copies now, actually, because I want to say one sold on eBay not too long ago. So, but yeah, I've seen a copy of Gene's solo album with the UPC sticker on the back. So. Alright, and then next up we got Ace's solo album. And I don't know if it'll really translate well on the camera, but the blue is a little off on the front and the back. The back is kind of like a blue-green color, kind of. But there's that 501 in the upper right corner. And Filmworks inner sleeve. And then the label on the record. So you see that polygram address at the bottom. And like Gene's, this one does not have a pressing plant number on the label. So yeah, this one right here was the last title that I needed to finish the series, and there's a group of like 4 or 5 of us that were finishing ours off around the same time. So we got to where if we found something that was a double of what we had, one of our buddies might have been looking for it, and we would trade for ones that we needed. We had a pretty good little circle going there for a while, and then we all finished within a couple of months of each other. So I can't remember who was first to finish. It might have been me, it might not have been me. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but it took me a good 2 years on eBay looking every day, multiple times a day, before I finally got them all. Alright, some of those that have finished this series, and maybe that are still trying to finish this series, they'll say that this is the toughest one to find of the series, and I believe it. But it was also the very first one out of this whole series that I found. It was in a lot, and there was one of the records in that lot had an insert that I needed, so I bought the whole lot, and this happened to be in it. So that's where I started collecting these at. So there's the 501 in the upper right corner on the back of Peter's record. And then we got the Filmworks inner sleeve. And the record. So you got that polygram address at the bottom. Now on the left hand side, underneath where it says side 1 and stereo, you can see a number 72 printed on there. So I told you there was going to be a different pressing plant eventually. So almost to the end of the run to get to it, but I got to it, by God. Alright. And then next up is Paul's solo album. And one thing that always kind of struck me, and I know the camera won't really pick up on this, but I think the purple on here is a little janky, and I've had a couple of these, and they've all been a little wonky on the purple. So there's the 501 in the upper right corner on Paul's. Filmworks inner sleeve. And the label has that polygram address at the bottom, and there's no printing plant to be found anywhere on the label. So alright. Next one up is Dynasty. So for Dynasty, we have a black 501 in that upper right corner. I have a Filmworks inner sleeve. And then the label. So it's got that polygram address at the bottom. If you look over to the left where it says side 1 and stereo, you'll see a number 72 printed on the label. Yeah, I mean, some people have asked, well, how do these reissues sound? It sounds like Dynasty to me. I mean, I can't pick up on subtle differences in masters. You know, it'd have to be something pretty outstanding for me to pick it up. So, all right. Next up is Unmasked. So Unmasked has a printing plant in the lower left corner, and it's that 0501 there underneath the Casablanca logo. Filmworks inner sleeve. And then the label. It's got that polygram address at the bottom, and if you go over to the right hand side underneath where it says NBLP 7225, you'll see a number 72 printed. Well, there's your pressing plant number. Alright, and then we got the Elder. Oh yeah, Elder ain't part of this series. We do have Creatures of the Night, and this album is kind of where we get the timeline. So, you know, the original release was in October of '82, and because of Dynasty Unmasked and the Elder, Kiss wasn't really selling too well in the early '80s. So when Creatures came along, Creatures kind of suffered for it and didn't sell a whole lot. So it's not like they were repressing the hell out of Creatures. So we know that the original version of this was released in October of '82, and then there was a non-makeup version that was released in '85, from '85 to '90. So that gives you a 2-year window between 1983 and 1984 for this reissue to happen. So that's where the timeline comes from. So Creatures, we have variations. So this particular variation has a pink 501 up on the upper right corner. And mine also has a UPC on the jacket. Every Filmworks 2 copy that I've come across has had the sticker on the jacket. I've even seen several in shrink. Filmworks, or that sticker was underneath the shrink. I myself had a sealed copy. The sticker was underneath the shrink, so I'm pretty confident that these got stuck right to the jacket on Creatures. We have a Filmworks inner sleeve. And we have Creatures on a Filmworks label. So there's the polygram address at the bottom. If you look over to the left hand side, you see a number 53. So there's your pressing plant number. Yeah, Peter Criss's solo album was the first I got from this series, and I was kind of unsure about whether I was going to go through with collecting it until I found Creatures of the Night. Once I found this one, I wanted the whole series. I don't know why that's what was in my mind at the time, but more than likely it was because Creatures is my favorite record. And I just didn't want to start on a series if I couldn't have my favorite record in it. So that's probably what I was thinking. Alright, and then we got another variation. So this one, the jacket does not have a 501 in the upper right corner. But down here by the UPC sticker, off to the right of the polygram logo, there's a really faint purple 206 that goes up and down. And that's literally the only difference between this one and this one. Now, I mean, there's maybe a slight color difference between the two. You can't see because this one's got plastic on it, but yeah, one's more of a deeper blue and one's kind of got some some green mixed in with it, but the main difference is your printing plant numbers on the jacket. And then, yeah, this has that filmworks inner sleeve. And then it also has that same filmworks label that I just showed. And that is the Filmworks 2 series. I kind of talked this series up quite a bit because it's actually quite hard to find the whole series. It wasn't in print for very long. It's a pretty rare series of records to get. Like I said, I was basically living on eBay for 2 years, and then, you know, in addition to the little network of buddies that I had that was going after this stuff at the same time, finding different titles and trading around with each other, trying to get what we needed. So yeah, it took forever for me to get that series lined out. So I'm pretty proud to have completed it, and I completed it kind of early in the game when people were still starting to gather it up. But, I do have some 45s to talk about here, and I'll reset here, and I'll be back in a second. We'll touch on some of the 45s I have, so stay tuned. Alright, even though it was a snap of the fingers for you, I've been gone for a few minutes. So I live in southwest Missouri, and right now it is colder than shit in the mornings, and by the time afternoon comes along, it warms up quite a bit. So I've been keeping the heater on in the house all morning, and now that we're in the early afternoon, it heated up enough to where I needed to kick the air on for a few minutes to cool everything down, because I was starting to get a little sweaty. So all right, so we got some 45s to talk about, and they're reissues also. They don't really belong to a specific album, but they were around the same time period. These were just basically Jukebox reissues from the mid to late 80s, and I mean, they don't fit the time period exactly, so, but I mean, this is about the best place I could figure out to put these in, just to say that I've talked about them. So the first up we have is Beth, backed with Hard Luck Woman. So yes, it's a reissue. It's not an exact reissue, because, you know, Beth was on a single with Detroit Rock City, and then Hard Luck Woman was its own single, and it had Mr. Speed. So Beth is the A side in this instance, and Hard Luck Woman is the B side. And this one just happens to have a little jukebox strip, which isn't really a selling point for me. So mine all came to me in white sleeves. I've seen people have theirs with filmworks sleeves. I really don't know which one's correct. I mean, I wouldn't think they'd still be pushing the whole filmworks thing by now, because Polygram had bought Casablanca completely out, so there's really no need to continue the Record and Filmworks name. But so here's Beth, Hard Luck Woman, and we don't have promotional copies on these. These are all just Jukebox copies. So first things first, we have a Polygram address at the bottom of the label. if you go off to the left-hand side, underneath where it says time and all that, you'll see a number 49. So there's your pressing plant number. And then the Hard Luck Woman side. And then if you look in the runouts, this particular reissue was mastered by True Tone, and it gives a date of June of 1986. So that's I guess that's one good little clue to look for. Now, how long it took from getting mastered to getting pressed and ending up on in the bins in the stores, I don't know how long that would have took. So, all right, we got another variation of Beth and Hard Luck Woman, also in a white sleeve. So if you notice this time, it's got that polygram address at the bottom, but off to the left it's got a number 72 on it. And then for Hard Luck Woman, and I'll kind of point you to the text below it. You know, it says from the Casablanca album NBLP 7037, Rock and Roll Over. And notice that Rock and Roll Over is on its own separate line. And then another thing I'll point out to you is in the polygram address, it says 810 7th Avenue, NY, NY. NY meaning New York. So New York, New York, but it's abbreviated and then gives a zip code. So while I'm putting this up, I will shoot up an image of one that was recently found, and it matches this 45 perfectly, except for the address. It is New York, NY. So just a fun little variation there to mess around with, and then I'll put them up side by side there for a second so you can see. So now we go on to the next variation. So again, manufactured, marketed by Polygram Records and all that at the bottom. On the left hand side it says number 72. And then we get to the back. Instead of Rock and Roll Over being on a separate line, it's now been married to the line above it. So it's from the original Casablanca album, NBLP 7037, Rock and Roll Over. It's all been joined together. So while I'm putting this up, I'll throw them both up so you can see. And then for the last variation of this single, we have a Timepieces inner sleeve. This is just a reissue series that transcends Kiss. I mean, there's all kinds of artists that were reissued on this series. And then another thing you'll notice is this 45 has a barcode on the label, and then it says Timepieces on the other side of the label. So keep from dropping this stupid thing. So there's your Beth side. There's a number 49 there on the left hand side. And Hard Luck Woman. Alright. Next up, we have I Was Made for Loving You, backed with the live version of Rock and Roll All Night. Again, in white sleeve. So now, if you look off to the left-hand side, you'll see a number 49 below where it says time and all that. So there's I Was Made for Loving You. And there's Rock and Roll All Night. Alright, we got another variation of it. Let me read what the variation is. Alright. So now, if you look off to the left-hand side, you'll see a number 72. And then if you look below it, it says from the Casablanca album, NBLP 7152 Dynasty, all on one line. So there's I Was Made for Loving You. And then here's Rock and Roll All Night. And it does the same thing on the text below it. You know, from the Casablanca album, NBLP 7020 Alive. Alright. Next up, you got NBLP, or I don't know where I was going with on that, but so you got a number 72 on the left, and now you notice from on the bottom it says from the Casablanca album, NBLP 7152, and then Dynasty is on its own line. And then same with Rock and Roll All Night from the Casablanca album, NBLP 7020, and then Alive's on its own line. I thought there might have been another difference somewhere. Or maybe I was thinking of a different 45. Alright, now we're getting to the timepieces reissue again. So we've got that timepieces sleeve. And then kind of the same as the last, the Beth Hard Luck Woman. So it says timepieces, and then there's a barcode on the label. Now what I want you to notice is there is no white box around that barcode. It's printed on the label. And then there's Rock and Roll All Night side. And I point that barcode out because this timepiece's sleeve has a 45 in it that's got the barcode printed on the white box. And there's Rock and Roll All Night side, so it's on both sides. And while I'm putting this up, I'll throw them both up side by side. So that's a little oddity there that I've seen more than one of, so I consider it a variation instead of just a little oddball. And that does it for my first installment of the polygram takeover. So I appreciate you hanging in there with me for this long, and I will catch you the next time around.